TC America, powered by Skip Barber, kicks off its season here at Sonoma Raceway. Race 1 was yesterday, and today they're back for another bite at the cherry. This 2.5-mile, 12-turn track features nearly 15 stories of elevation change over a single lap. Today, 18 drivers in 3 classes of touring cars will take on this challenging track and themselves in Race 2 of this 2024 season. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick is down in the pits. Beautiful day here in Sonoma. If a bit chilly, but the sun is out. The temperatures are starting to climb, and the action on track figures to be quite hot as well, with 3 classes of touring cars ready to go here, Cal.
Yeah, it was an exciting day yesterday, some excellent racing, and we had some favorites probably coming into the championship weekend here. The opener with PJ Gronke taking the win in TCA, Jeff Ricker in TC, but I think in TCX, I think our eye was on Lucas Katana coming in with his history in this class and success, but he's found a whole new challenge this year in Chris Walsh, who scored the opening win here yesterday. Can he turn the tables today from the outside of the front row?
The two were separated by only 1,000th of a second in qualifying for race 1. The edge for race 2 went to Walsh, who had the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race yesterday, so he'll start this race from pole with Lucas Katana giving chase. Well, I believe Amanda Busick is down amongst this grid of cars and is ready to give us an update from the pit lane.
Hey guys, yeah, we're getting ready for the second race here at Sonoma for the TC class, and you look at all the pole sitters from each class. They are our race winners from yesterday, but you guys were just talking about the battle between Chris Walsh and Lucas Katana. I was able to catch up with Lucas prior to this race, and he said, man, that was just good racing between us. He said that he wasn't expecting Chris to make that move for the lead, but said he found it perfectly and got one on him. They did go back to the paddock yesterday and review some tape and made some changes. Lucas is ready for a battle with Chris today.
Yeah, those two were awesome yesterday. It was neck and neck for basically the whole race. Finally, Chris saw an opportunity late in the going. He took it and never looked back, picking up a big win, his first in TC America competition.
Yeah, and we talked about Katana and how many podium runs he's had over the years. Got a big win last year at Coda and comes into this championship season. It's going to be an interesting fight between those two, it looks like. Celso Neto, we've got these Integras on the grid. They got 5 cars in the field. They had a nice podium run yesterday. We saw the team there doing a last-minute tire pressure adjustment, it looked like, in the background when Amanda gave us our report. But let's see what the Integras can do if they've learned anything overnight and give the BMWs a bit harder time here today in race 2.
That's TCX, that's the top class. 2 other classes also to cover off. We've got TCA, or maybe TCA as in what the Canadians like to say, because we've got a couple of Canadians making up that field, PJ Gronke and Maddie Lemke. But the TC class, I think, is going to be really fun all season long. Yesterday, we never got a chance to see Christian Pericarpi in one of the front-running minis. He had an engine issue, did not run. I saw them taking a hardship lap earlier this morning, and their intention is to be able to run here today, but they have to start at the back. We'll see if he can take the fight to Jeff Ricker in race number 2. But in race 1, well, these are the highlights. This is how it played out. From the pole position, Lucas Katana controlled the early part of the race. Walsh actually slipped to 3rd momentarily, but that black and blue car was able to pounce, making his way back up into 2nd around Celso Neto at this moment here. Neto with a little bit of a wild run at the exit of turn number 10 that allowed Walsh to slip back to the inside up to 2nd, and he would drop no further back from there the rest of the race. Coming together between 2 teammates from the Gin Racer stable. Ruben Iglesias penalized for that. Sally McNulty recovered for a career best finish. This, though, was the move for the lead and ultimately the win. Chris Walsh up the inside of Lucas Katana, taking that number 104 from Karas Racing to the lead. Great battles, though, all throughout this field. Different makes and models mixing it up together. The checkered flag, though, flew for Chris Walsh, who picked up his first career win in TC America. Really impressive job by him, and excited to see him for a full season after several part-time campaigns over the last few years.
Yeah, certainly a great day, but everyone has a chance to dust themselves off, and they've learned a lot with this new track surface. and maybe some tweaks will change the dynamic and the play here for race 2 of the weekend.
I was telling the story about Christian Pericarpi. That's the silver car you see, the Mini at the back of the TC field. He was a championship contender for much of the year yesterday. He's a race winner in TC America competition in the past, but he's got some work to do starting out back, and with an unknown coming into the race too, not knowing exactly what the situation will be after repairs to that car following their powertrain issues yesterday.
Yeah, 0-point score yesterday, so he doesn't want to walk away with here from Sonoma with 2 duck eggs. So he needs to hopefully have a car that's reliable, get to the finish, score points, and he's a quick little driver, great team, so he could be knocking on the door of a podium even with a rough start to the weekend.
Looks like engines are fired down on the pit lane, and the cars will head out for the formation lap. See you at this 2.5-mile, 12-turn Sonoma Raceway facility. Mentioned it in the open. So much elevation change, somewhere around 160 feet from top high point, I should say, to the low point around this track. About 15 stories in all, and it makes for a real roller coaster ride.
So Joey Jordan there leaving the grid. He had a little bit of a problem towards the end of the race that cost him a runner-up finish. Still finished on the podium, so hopefully they got that milestone well and truly sorted for today as well.
It was a really good debut for the season, at least for that team. They've been working on this Mazda 3 program for a number of years, and to see them be able to put together a full race, running in podium contention the entire time, I think they'll take a lot of heart in that. This is the track. We were talking about it a moment ago. Those 12 turns packed into 2.5 miles. Section 1, more low-speed corners, but a lot of elevation change. Sector 2, some more high-speed drag race portions, including some high-speed S's. And then that run to the finish line, which includes the tight hairpin at turn 11, 180 degrees. Good braking zone there and a chance for some overtaking.
Yeah, very much so, and there's not too many gimmies on that circuit. The 12 corners, a couple of them are relatively easy, but the rest are very, very challenging. Ton of elevation change, blind corners, as you can see within the 2.5-mile length. And the big talking point this weekend is, of course, the new track surface and the grip that has enabled the racing to be a little bit better, I feel. A lot more side-by-side action through some of the corners, whereas in years past it was a single-line racetrack. This has made it a ton of fun to watch and certainly compete with.
A few changes overnight with some patching done at the apex of a number of corners, including at the turn 9 chicane, 9 and 9A, as they're listed here at Sonoma Raceway, an epoxy surface, as you can see, laid down. That's different than yesterday. So for these drivers, they'll be seeing it now for the first time, and will do their best to judge what to expect when they arrive at speed in just a few minutes.
Seemed fine. I mean, the GTA race that we saw a little bit earlier this morning, cars seem to have good grip through there. So again, I'm just amazed, quite honestly, that with the technology now, with the resurfacing and some of the epoxy paint, that these track surface people have just done a tremendous job to get this race on this weekend, because to be honest with you, Ryan, we weren't sure we'd be competing here just a couple of days ago.
Let's look at how they will line up for race 2 of the season. On the pole position, the winner yesterday, Chris Walsh for the Karas race team. He'll have rigid speed driver Lucas Katana to his outside. Row number 2 in TCX belongs to the newcomer to this series, Celso Neto, new to the class, I should say. Veteran Mike Lamara starts 4th. Starting 5th today will be Joe Katana, father to Lucas, and Cooper Broll in another Acura Integra will start in 6th. 7th belongs to Mario Bundo, and Aaron Kaplan, the Chicago native, will line up in the 8th position. Chris DeFreitas out back in TCX. Pole sitter in the TC class, that's Jeff Rica. He was a winner yesterday too. In fact, as Amanda said, all of our winners yesterday will start on pole today. His teammate, Ruben Iglesias, will start alongside. Joey Jordan in that Mazda 3. Fuel starvation issues yesterday is what cost them a 2nd place finish. Still managed 3rd. He'll start 3rd today. Chris Valdez and Sally McNulty make up the next 2 cars on this grid. Scott Thompson and Christian Pericarpi, the 2 mini teammates, will start out back in the TC class. Then to the 2 TCA cars here this weekend, PJ Gronke and Maddie Lemke, who is making just her 3rd professional start in this race today. That's how they'll line up. Good mix of cars, good mix of powertrains, drivetrains. Gotta love touring car racing. These are cars you can go out and pick up in the showroom, of course, modified for racing, but many of the brands and models that you are familiar with are racing here today. Let's learn a bit more about this briefly here with Amanda in the pits.
Yeah, Ryan, you guys were talking about what the Acuras might be able to do here against the BMWs and the TCX. I was talking to Celso Neto, and he said we just don't have the long run speed of these BMWs. Well, you look at these long stretches here at Sonoma, what are some opportunities for these Acuras to make up that distance on BMW?
It'll be something to watch, that's for sure. Great to have Acura here. They're super invested in this Integra platform. Big things to come in the future. Here comes the field. Approaching the VP acceleration zone, your Rover Pole winner for the TCX class is yesterday's winner, Chris Walsh. He's on the left-hand side of the screen. The green flag is out, and we are racing. Race number 2 here at Sonoma is underway. Walsh quickly grabs the lead. Katana slots into second, and a spin at the back of this pack. I think that's Biundo who's gone around.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I mean, right as you sort of start to climb the hill, I mean, I know it's a little bit cooler here this morning, but hopefully he can recover as now we see the TC field going to green with Mario still there on the side of the road, I think.
That incident covered by a local yellow flag as the TC cars go green. You see Biundo trying to extract himself from the sand. It looks like he'll be able to do so. Nice clean start for both the TC and TCA field, which started together here today as they climb up the hill. Nice job by Jeff Rica from pole position, as you would expect, who started alongside his teammate, and those two played nice in the opening few moments. Christian Pericarpi, though, quickly on the move. He knifes his way past Sally McNulty, and he's already up a couple of spots to 4th.
Yeah, really nice start there for Christian. So he's ramped up. He's probably feeling the car is healthy, so he'll be happy. Up to P4 early. Jeff Rica dominated yesterday, out front right now in TC, but overall in TCX, it's Chris Walsh. Katana did a really nice job of not opening the door for Celso Neto there up the hill into turn 1, because you're very vulnerable from the outside of that front row. So he's done a nice job so far.
Neto, a late addition to the TCX field ahead of this weekend. Great to see him make that step forward with the Skip Barber Racing School team. Right now, hot on the heels of second place running Lucas Katana, giving him pause here in the early stages.
Mike Lamara there in that bright blue Acura, really eating up that outside curb there in the turn 9 chicane to good effect. He's gapped the rest of the pack behind him. He can just focus forward now on Neto.
Thought Neto had a nice day yesterday to bring home a podium and keep the much more experienced Mike Lamara at bay.
Little bobble there for Katana. His car isn't quite settled in yet. Neto's all over him. Talked about that he seemed to have pace at the beginning yesterday, then faded a little bit. Ultimately, in terms of lap time, fast laps, I mean, the Integra is about 1.5 seconds off of the BMWs. Of course, we're talking rear-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive, so that'll be a factor on the long run. But tire degradation is not such a big factor this year with this new surface giving good grip. Car's not sliding across the surface and overheating the tires.
Yesterday, in just about every category, it was not uncommon to see the fastest laps of the race come in at the end of races, something that would have been unthinkable at this track with the old surface.
Yeah, and the reason that happens, of course, is the car gets a little bit lighter as it burns through the fuel load, but consequently, in years past, the tires are not in the best of shape when you get to that point in the race. Now they are, so exciting times. Got to be fun to drive one of these cars this year around this circuit.
Walsh continues to lead. Then is the black and blue BMW at the front of the shot. Then coming through the picture second, that's Lucas Katana. And Celso Neto giving chase, former Brazilian stock car driver. Still a very young guy, but has quite a bit of experience in his native Brazil. Came over stateside a couple of years ago and has been a consistent front runner in the various touring car categories that he has run in.
Cooper Broll runs in 5th. Joseph Katana, Luke's dad, runs in the top 6. Aaron Kaplan having a solid run once again in the Kaplan Racing Systems BMW, number 18.
He debuted last year at his home track, Road America, and was immediately on the pace. I think opened a lot of eyes, but I don't believe he's ever made the long haul out to Sonoma before, so some lessons to be learned. This is a track, as you know well, it takes some nuance to get around here quickly.
Yeah, and he's got an excellent coach with him this weekend. Mark Miller's been working with him, saw him in the paddock this weekend. So that's what you need. You need a good set of eyes and someone who's got a ton of experience, can steer you in the right direction.
The big mover in the opening stages was Christian Pericarpi, who was able to jump up into the 4th spot, and he's now chasing down Joey Jordan for a spot on the podium in the TC class. Jeff Rica, though, is flying. We saw him do this yesterday. He has the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race in what is ostensibly the 2nd class.
Yeah, just crazy, just the pace of that Hyundai. Done such a great job with that platform. Started the year in 2023 with 4 victories on the bounce. Thought the championship was well under control, went off to the Nürburgring, and ultimately left the door open.
This is the fastest car on track, irrespective of class. He ran a 150.1 the last time by. Chris Walsh, the TCX leader, ran a 150.3. So Jeff, he's hooked up, and you heard him talk about it in his winner's interview yesterday. He acknowledged, look, this car, when we debuted it here last year, it was on rails, and that has carried over one year to the next.
Yeah, it's really a well-sorted platform. He's loving life. Got 3 cars underneath the tent this year competing in the same class. So great customer racing program. I think they're looking to keep that number moving ever higher. A lot of interest when you have that sort of success, of course, for people who want to break into touring car racing. It's a great team to be with.
Jeff has actually made his way past Chris DeFreitas at the back of the TCX field, so he's got a bit of a buffer to Ruben Iglesias, who runs 2nd. Ruben had a nice run going yesterday until contact with his teammate led to a penalty. And here's Joey Jordan in a home race for him here in California. Son of Joe Jordan, who was a part of this series for a long time. We'll miss you, Joe. Thinking about you here this weekend.
I'll be proud of his boys' persistence and perseverance with this program. And fuel starvation, I wonder if they just miscalculated how much fuel to put on board the race car, because it was towards the end that he finally lost that, and you get heavy load through some of the corners. Maybe the fuel's not there for the pickup to work, so it might be just been an adjustment, or there could have been some kind of technical issue as well creating that. Who knows?
Tightening up a bit here at the front. It's no longer a fight for 2nd and 3rd. Katana has dropped Neto. He just turned in the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, in fact, and was able to close in on Chris Walsh. It's down to half a second. Roles reversed from yesterday. These two ran nose to tail for pretty much the whole race one day ago, but it was Katana leading Walsh in that instance.
Yeah, and Catania's car looked really solid from the get-go yesterday. We always felt that Chris's car was maybe working a bit more better for him because he could be very aggressive with the lines he was choosing. But to me, Catania's car took a couple of laps to come in. Looked like that was a little bit loose there in a couple of moments around the racetrack. So maybe he's now found the sweet spot with the tire pressures and starting to feel it a bit.
Now we'll see how Walsh does in defense. We know how good he was on offense yesterday, but different set of circumstances for the former college athlete turned USA national team bobsledder. He's got a really fascinating backstory, and he has just responded with the new CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race by 1/1000th of a second over Lucas Katana.
Let's think about qualifying. Katana was 1/1000th quicker in qualifying.
Correct.
So these two, you don't get more evenly matched than that, I don't think.
Two different teams running these identical BMW M2s. What a popular platform this has been, not just here in the States, but around the world. You see these racing in Europe extensively, a lot of them at the Nürburgring and endurance racing there. And when they debuted here in America several years back, they were so popular, especially with track day enthusiasts, that race teams had a really hard time getting their hands on these cars. There were a lot of teams and drivers that wanted to run them, but could not get an allocation from that first run of production.
Tell you what, Katana got a really good run through the carousel there. Looked like he's on the power much earlier than Chris Walsh, and closed up, gets a little bit wide there. Got to be careful when you ask the car to do that late turn in. You kind of really overload that outside front tire.
Nip and tuck between these two. Not much to separate them, and that's the way it's been all weekend long. And they're building a gap. Looks like we've had a change for the 3rd spot, as behind these two, Mike Lamara has just put a pass on Celso Neto for the 3rd position. It's a nice job by Mike, and in fact, Celso might be in trouble.
Yeah, he's dropping big time.
Out the window, it looks like he might be heading for the pit lane. That's a shame for the man who finished third yesterday in his first ever TCX race.
Yeah, we're not close to that halfway point. It's halfway on laps, but even so, that typically relates to the time on the board as well. So hopefully they can get a fix on that and get Silso back out so at least score some points here today.
Just about 10 minutes down, and here we have another fight on our hands. Pericarpi has lost the third spot to Sally McNulty, but is starting to reel her back in. These two have raced against one another in the TCA class in years past. Now, as they were last year, they find themselves squared off in TC competition.
Rare best for Sally yesterday with that runner-up finish, so that was huge for her, and she keeps climbing the ladder, knocking on the door of her first victory. It will happen.
Put so much work into putting the partners together to go racing. Works as a mechanic, actually, in an auto dealership from for her day job. Yep, this was just a few moments ago, actually. Pericarpi took a look to the inside, but wisely backed out of it. He was certainly not alongside. In fact, McNulty probably had some flashbacks to yesterday. That's where she got turned around by her teammate Ruben Iglesias in a very similar situation.
That's right. She stood her ground, though. Really nice job there. See Christian's car a little bit light as he crests over the top of the hill there into the entry for the carousel.
It does seem that these two cars have opposite strengths and weaknesses. There are parts of the track Sally pulls away. There are other parts that Christian just reels her right back in. Two very different platforms, as you can see visually, between the Hyundai and the Mini.
Yeah, I think one thing that really stands out with this sort of type of racing where you can't change the individual gear ratios, of course, is just where you find the torque of the engine and what gear you can pull in a certain corner. Some cars will just struggle. There's not an ideal gear. They're what we call in-between gears. The lower gear is too low, the taller gear is too high, and you just got to deal with it. Whereas the car, a different manufacturer behind you, may be right in its sweet spot.
Pericarpi continuing his pursuit. Last fall, he enrolled at a university in the Indianapolis area pursuing a mechanical engineering degree. Took a couple years after graduating high school to focus on his racing, but wanted to add some mechanical acumen to the toolbox. So balancing those studies and the racing, as we have seen a number of drivers do over the years.
These two kind of tied together. Right here is where I feel that, yeah, that was a lot better there, a lot tidier there on entry. I think before, when Lucas tries to make that slightly later cut, he loses the front end a little bit and can't get it sharply turned into the corner.
These two learning a lot about one another and their tendencies here this weekend, as much as they've run together.
Yeah, Lucas just kind of fainted to the middle of the road there, but wasn't close enough, and I think Chris understands that. He's now got enough laps under his belt in this race to really identify, you know, where the strengths and weakness may be between the two. Lucas really took it in extra deep there, keeps the front pin down to the apex. As we've talked about all weekend long, these brake zones are shorter this year, so you don't have as much room to work with, as much scope to maybe make an overtaking opportunity.
Over the last two seasons, Lucas Katana has notched an astounding 20 podium finishes. 20, but just one win. And you know that's in the back of his mind, especially after yesterday, where he looked like he was in position to get that second win until the final few minutes.
I had a year like that once, finished second 15 times. It wasn't fun.
Who beat you, though?
No, some little Brazilian kid.
Might have gone on to do something. A Senna. Does it make you feel any better about it, knowing what he went on to do?
Marginally. Every night, though, it didn't.
No.
Made for a long drive home. My girlfriend's mum at the time used to say, "Second again?" Yes, second.
Well, I think Lucas was tired of us saying that last year, and that made that breakthrough win so important. His dad actually had his first podium at one point last year, But that, too, was a bit of a mixed bag because I think, if I'm remembering this right, it came because Lucas was penalized for something, and that ultimately promoted Joe up to third. So, yeah, it was one of those where you're not sure if you should celebrate or not. I say you should. You take the podium however you can get it.
Yeah. I think it's fun to watch, you know, a relatively small team have success. So, yeah, I mean, it can sound like we're beating up on Lucas a little bit because he keeps finishing behind, but there's still a stunning achievement for a small team. They do a lot of the work themselves. So to be so consistently right there knocking on the door of victory every single weekend. But you know what? He wants to break through and have a handful of wins there and maybe grab a championship along the way.
Speaking of Joe Katana, he's in a similar position to his son relative to the battle that he's involved in here, chasing down Cooper Brawl. This is 4th and 5th in TCX. Two different platforms here, though. Cooper in that new Integra, and Joe Katana in that tried and true BMW M2.
Amanda reporting that Celso Neto's car has had a shifting problem, so they're trying to diagnose that and get a few more laps on the board to possibly score points today.
That is always important to get to the 50% mark of the race, and with the field sizes the way they are, that should just about lock you into points if you can get to that 50% mark. Carby closed in just a few moments ago on McNulty, but couldn't get the job done. So back to this battle we go. Katana looks to the inside. This is cut and paste of what Walsh did to him just one day ago. They're still side by side in turn number 7. Walsh fighting back on the outside, but he's got to give the spot up. Lucas Katana has gone to the points.
There we go. That's what I like to see. Just that little percentage more aggression, he gets the job done.
Learned a little something from yesterday, I think. Pulled the same move.
Yeah, you called it almost a cut and paste, a replica of what we saw in reverse order yesterday. Now Walsh is pushing a little bit too much, asks for the front end to respond there, coming through the chicane and loses a car length.
Tell you what, if this is what the season's going to be like, sign me up. These two are so evenly matched in identical equipment as well. Super stuff. Coming up on the halfway mark, just 3 minutes away. 40-minute races, no pit stops, an all-out sprint, and you really can sprint here with this new track surface. In years past, tire management was part of the story, but that is gone.
Yeah, it really seems to be the way. It's got to be so much fun to just go hard, hammer and tong all the way through these 40-minute sprint race, not having to really worry about tires and conserve. Makes the racing great. You can go side by side through some of the corners that you couldn't before.
Let's learn a little bit more about Chris Walsh and the Karras racing team. I believe Amanda is standing by.
Yeah, I was standing with Tony when Lucas just took that overtake on Chris. He said, that's okay, we got time. You said yesterday was super special with Chris getting that win. Why is it so meaningful for you, Tony?
Because I've been working with Chris for a little while, and I've been trying to get him into a car. He doesn't have a lot of funding, so my partner Daniel Espinoza and I really came up with a plan to fund him. And Chris is working with Step One and Wear Blue, which, as we all know, is a veteran organization where they take care of veterans and with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and there's a lot of suicide that goes along with it, and Chris is really just putting himself out to do that. You know, he's still enlisted, so he's just stretching himself, especially since he has 2 little girls, and just doing what he can to be there. And we like this guy, and it just felt good. It felt right. Daniel and I spoke quite a few times about it and decided that we're going to cover him even though he doesn't have any money right now to do this, and you see why.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Such a cool story, and tells you about the passion that these folks in this paddock have for the sport, and also the support of such a good cause as well. Chris has done a lot of work over the past few seasons using this as a platform to raise awareness for, as you heard, veterans suffering from PTSD.
Well, that's what's so great about our sport. I'd hate to call this level of competition grassroots, but drivers at the beginning of their careers, potentially just the stories in the backdrop and background as to how they're here and how they make it happen. And hats off to that team for recognizing what Chris does outside of the race car and rewarding him with the drive. And boy, did he pay them back yesterday with a superb win.
Still has a chance to rebound, but Lucas Catania has made that just a little bit harder. He's found the pace here, just reset the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, and has built what I believe might be the biggest lead we have seen all weekend in the TCX class at 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, he's certainly taken off here a little bit. Let's see what Chris has got, if he can respond. But as I mentioned before, it looked like Lucas's car, maybe the tire pressure starting point was not in ideal for the opening laps, but now the car has come into its own a little bit.
Change in position here. Joe Catania, no, I'm sorry, it's Cooper Broll just dropped a spot to Celso Neto, and I actually wanted to bring this up a couple minutes ago. I did notice Celso just set his fastest lap of the race, so whatever the shifting issue was, it appears to have resolved itself because he is flying again.
Yeah, we thought he was going to head to pit lane, but he elected to stay out there and try and sort it out. So I'm not sure if it was some kind of electronic thing that he was able to do a Control-Alt-Delete, but he's only 18 seconds out of the lead, so he didn't waste a lot of time getting it sorted out.
Nice work in the cockpit, or whatever the case may be, to get the problem rectified. Keep in mind, this is his first race weekend in this car. Not sure if he's done any testing in it, but given the fact he was not on the pre-event entry list, I suspect he probably has not.
That's the other thing. We talk, wow, battle has really closed up here. We talk about, you know, learning this racetrack, but also let's not forget the backstory to this week is that a lot of the practice was basically curtailed with the fixes to the racetrack itself. So that means a lot of teams came in here with the expectation of 2 days of solid testing to prepare for race day. That didn't happen, so that means you just got to be really on the ball and try and get these cars dialed in as quickly as you could. Walsh
on the counterattack now. Lost that lead just a few laps ago. Catania had built the gap up to 0.7 of a second, but on the last lap, Walsh was only a 10th off of his best lap of the race. And now, as you can see, now it's back down to just a few tenths, a few car lengths between first and second in TCX and overall. But they do have some traffic up ahead they'll have to contend with over the next few laps.
Coming off the chicane, looks like Walsh's car is a little bit more understeering as he's trying to get that corner finished off. Comes off that turn with a lot more steering input, and that means typically you're getting back to power a little bit later.
Using up all the red and white curbing at the apex of turn 11. That is the only stretch of curbing around this track that is red and white. Most of it is white, blue, and gold. And that is because the former track president, Steve Page, he's a graduate of University of California, Berkeley. And those, of course, are Cal's colors, the Golden Bears. In fact, I've been told, I believe every University of California system school has those colors, but Cal Berkeley in particular is what prompted him to make the directive to paint the curbs in that color.
You do your research, Ryan. I'm impressed.
I do what I can.
Cool story. Why is turn 11 different?
That I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
If you can get on that by the next race, I'd appreciate it.
Our buddy Kyle Heyer, who does the public address and also is on the GR Cup broadcast, he is a curbing aficionado. Huh. He loves curbs. He's got all the details about the different types of curbs.
Is there a name for that? Like flag watching or something?
You know what? We got to look into this. We'll do a little research on that. But
there's one for Lego or something.
Yeah, I learned that recently.
Yeah.
Who has the Legos? Who were you talking to?
Daniel Hanley, who's going to be competing here in the next race this morning.
Big-time Lego guy. All right, we're getting off piste. Let's get back on track here as the leaders make their way through some TC class traffic. That was Scott Thompson, who is making his series debut here this weekend in one of the TC Minis. Drove, if not that very chassis, at least a very similar car in the 25 hours of Thunderhill over the winter. Really cool a club level race that actually has seen a lot of pro level entries in recent years.
Yeah, I think the Lizards did it for many years.
Yes. Right? George Kurtz has competed and won in that in the past, I know.
And there's some wild and wonderful non-homologated machinery that shows up for that one, I believe.
That is correct. That's on my bucket list.
We could maybe win.
Yeah?
If we had the unfair advantage, Ryan.
Okay. Well, we'll sign you up, see what we can do. I know that...
I'm not signing up for another runner-up finish. So,
okay,
yeah.
Understood. It's
Needs
win
to be
or nothing.
Yeah.
For Calvin Fish. 15 minutes to go. Second race of the weekend in TC America. Checking back in on Cooper Brohl, who runs 6th at the moment. Another nice solid run for Cooper, who's been a part of this championship for a few years. Native of Oregon, so I guess this would be the home track.
It's for this year, right?
I'm sorry, that's the wrong Cooper. Took the wrong Cooper in my notes, so let's try that again. It still is his home track, but he's from California.
Oh, that's closer.
Yeah.
Skip Barber got a couple of cars in the top 6, so a nice solid start to their campaign for 2024. Great to see that they've created kind of this ladder system for them with a lot of their students who can make the move to the pro ranks with some of their operations that they now have in the SRO paddock.
And Cooper is a prime example of that. Came through the Skip Barber school, did schools in Mustangs, Civics, and in the F4 car before jumping into the touring cars. Ran TCA last year in a Honda Civic SI and has stepped up in class to TCX. Actually jumped up a couple classes.
These two just so evenly matched here this weekend, from qualifying through race 1 through race 2. Looks like Chris has maybe worked with the tools maybe a little bit in the car, or just changed his approach to a couple of the corners. Car seems to be tucking in a little bit better, maybe being a bit more patient with the throttle application through a couple of the key corners. Certainly hasn't given up on his hopes of winning and sweeping the weekend.
Something tells me, though, he's not going to get the same opportunity he got yesterday. I suspect Lucas has studied that extensively and will proactively be covering that off. In the meantime, major lead for Jeff Rica. It's about 10 seconds now over his teammate Ruben Iglesias Jr. It appears to be a trouble-free run for Jeff so far, Amanda. What have you found out?
Well, Jen Racer definitely likes that, especially Rachel Rica, team mom and team manager. And we know that Jeff is on a championship or bust kind of season for himself. But when you think of the expanded operations, 3 cars within Jen Racer, how does Jeff manage the responsibilities of driver and team?
He's just really, he gives a lot of advice to the other drivers. He sits down with them. They go over strategies. He's an overall team player. He's great.
I know that you're on headset with Jeff throughout the race. What is he like during a race? Animated? Does he talk a lot or kind of quiet?
He's very quiet. He likes to know sometimes the gap between him, but other than that, unless he talks to you, you stay silent.
Focused and locked in, guys. Thank you, Rachel.
Sums up Jeff nicely. Battle for the lead continues in TCX. Worked past Maddie Lemke there a moment ago. Currently second in the TCA class. Looks like Walsh has a bit of a run here. Katana slowing perhaps a little bit, but Walsh gets to his flank, gets to the outside, carries a ton of speed into turn number 1, and Chris Walsh has taken the lead back.
Wow, that was bizarre there. It looked like Lucas immediately knew he was in trouble. He looked like he launched off turn 11 okay, but then on the acceleration run, he felt vulnerable. That's why he kind of hugged it tight to the left. And Chris just had those extra miles per hour to work with and swept it by the outside. Great move.
12 minutes to go, and the lead has changed hands
and
again,
he's off.
But Walsh goes wide. Here comes Katana fighting back through. Walsh kept his foot in it, though. It didn't seem to cost him much momentum, and Chris has held on to the lead.
He's certainly pushing. Just seemed like he's hit a different mode here. Getting towards the 4th quarter of this race, and he realized it's go time. Made that move. Pushed it a little too hard exiting turn 4, but got away with it.
Oh, that's a fire. That is a big one.
Jeff Rickard car.
Safety car immediately has been deployed. Big incident here at Sonoma Raceway brings out the safety car for the first time this weekend in TC America by Skip Barber. Driver is out of the car. That is Jeff Rica. Whew. That was scary, scary stuff. So glad to see Jeff out of that race car.
He keeled over a little bit. I assume he just pulled over. There was some kind of technical issue that then turned into fire, but it looked like he's holding his stomach there as he was on the other side of the fence.
It looked like the fire suppression system had gone off. So maybe just inhaled some of those chemicals.
Possibly, yeah. It's not feeling well.
No. But the good news is Jeff is out of the car. That was a scary moment. Unfortunately, that's going to cost him a chance to go back-to-back here. It does promote his teammate, Ruben Iglesias, to the lead. Joey Jordan moves to second in TC, and Sally McNulty would be third. But the best news of all, Jeff Rica out of the car under his own power.
This may take a little while to get sorted out. Just under 10 minutes to go here, so the safety crews will first check on Jeff, make sure he's okay physically, and got to make sure that the fire is arrested and then get it out of harm's way in terms of being able to go back to racing. But that can eat up the minutes, eat up the clock, so could be close.
Yeah, tough situation for everyone. Breaks off this fantastic battle between Walsh and Katana. And what a scrap they've had, not just today, but if you were with us yesterday, you saw it all race long. 40 minutes, non-stop action between Walsh and Katana. Walsh came out on top. Looked like maybe today was the day for Lucas. Made a great pass, very similar to the one that was used on him yesterday into turn 7. Took the lead, pulled out a bit of a gap, but Walsh has fought back and now finds himself out in front behind the safety car with under 9 minutes to go.
Yeah, really curious to know from that group whether Lucas had a momentary technical glitch there, because it definitely looked like they accelerated off turn 11, and then you could see by his positioning of the car on the front straightaway, he felt that he was vulnerable to being passed, tried to protect that inside line, and Walsh just swept around the outside by the time they got to turn 1.
What a result this would be for this car. Ruben Iglesias, who has now inherited the lead in the TC class. Joey Jordan running second in the Cork Sport Mazda 3. And Sally McNulty in third. It could be a double podium for Gin Racer. Unfortunately, though, the team leader out of the race. You can see the fire is out. Jeff is looking on, and he does look like he's feeling a little bit better here. But a lot of smoke still coming out of that race car. Well, again, we saw just briefly that big burst of flame. And then happily, not so long afterwards, Jeff had exited the car and was walking around and appears to be all right. But he'll be checked out by the medical team just to make sure everything is on the up and up, and I'm sure he's already thinking about trying to make repairs and to make sure they're ready for the next round of the championship at Sebring.
Yeah, points will be scored, but even so, after dominating yesterday, we'd love to have swept the weekend. He's got his teammates in great shape, filling 2 of the 3 spots on the podium right now. Joey Jordan sits in second in the Mazda 3.
If the race ended now, I'm trying to think about this from a points perspective, would Joey and Sally be tied for the lead? They're right now second and third. They finished second and third, but in the opposite order yesterday. And I guess the only question is, how many points will Jeff Rica score? He had 25 yesterday. I don't think he would get enough today, so I think that's how it would play out.
Yeah, tie for the lead, possibly.
And that would mean a lot for both of those young drivers to leave the first weekend of the season tied at the top of the points table. other results of note, Christian Pericarpi has dropped back after his strong start. Chris Valdez actually is now up into 4th in TC. Really nice run for Chris, West Coast-based guy. Big-time skateboarder. That's his passion outside of motorsports. And I remember him telling me one time he had one year where he attempted to do a different skateboarding trick every day of the year. And it was amazing when he was explaining this, the amount of forethought that would have to go into this. So he'd have to keep some pretty simple tricks that he could just do in a parking lot or something if he was on a road trip in his back pocket, if he wasn't going to be able to get out to a skate park or something in order to achieve this. And evidently he pulled it off. 365 different tricks in 365 days.
I think I could do that. If you've ever seen me on anything like a skateboard, there's some, I create some new moves for it unintentionally.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd pay to watch
it's
that.
Not pretty.
It is funny, though, you know, when you talk to some of these folks, usually it's about racing. And as soon as you bring up a race car, their eyes light up. But I remember that was when I met Chris, and I had been told to ask him about skateboarding. And as soon as I did, you could have, I mean, you could have seen his grin from space. He was so excited somebody had asked him about that. A tip for you if you ever make your way out to one of these races and you meet Chris in the paddock. Another guy who'd be happy to talk to you in the paddock is PJ Gronke, that blue Mini, kind of at the back of the shot. That's your leader in the TCA class. I know he wishes there were a few more drivers to race with, but his win at VIR last year was so cool to see. He had gone several years without a win, former class champion in the old TCB class. But PJ beat everyone on that day in a very strong field of TCA cars 1 year ago. And he talked to me about that a little bit this morning and was still absolutely thrilled with that result.
Yeah, I think that was a popular win within the whole paddock. They recognize how much heart and soul goes into his racing efforts, and we joked about it in qualifying yesterday when we were on the air for his qualifying session, looking at the entry list and the fact that the font size for all of his sponsors goes down about 5 times compared to the others just to squeeze them all in on the entry sheet. But that's really how he goes about it. It makes a little go a long way, and it's great to see him getting solid results once again.
He rattled off all of those sponsors in his Victory Lane interview yesterday. Maybe the most impressive thing we've seen all weekend. Now, the safety crew still hard at work. We're doing laps at about 3 minutes, 6 seconds under the safety cars. So they crossed the line with about 4 minutes left. I suspect we're looking at 2 more laps, well, 1.5 at this stage, behind the safety car with the checkered and the yellow simultaneously. I just don't see it is a likely outcome to get this race restarted.
No, safety comes first. You could see them dousing the grass as well. Unfortunately, we've had a little bit of rain here this week too. We don't have super dry conditions like sometimes you can have out here. So I don't think there's any risk there of anything catching fire underneath the car, but they're doing everything they can to get it out of harm's way. But time is not on our side, unfortunately, which is a shame because I think we'd have seen some good racing, particularly up front between Walsh and Katana. Just saw that pass back for the lead with Chris Walsh just before we went to this full course yellow.
Got a message from Amanda, who apparently did ask the Rigid Speed team if there was anything amiss with the car. We saw it apparently slow down, and that gave Chris the run. The team's not aware of anything. They thought maybe lap traffic could have had something to do with it. I don't remember seeing any out-of-class cars mixed up in that battle, but could have missed something. In any event, they certainly are hoping for a restart. Their message to Amanda was, and we think we can get him if we go back to green. I'm just not sure they're going to get their wish.
Key for the drivers right now is just to not fall asleep. I don't mean literally, but you know, you got to prep these tires just in case. If you suddenly get, you know what, we're lights out, we're going to go back to racing here, you got to prep the tires. If you're running around with hot Pirelli P0s and you're offline a little bit, you see all those marbles right at the forefront of this camera angle, you'll pick those up almost like rolling a snowball. And that means when you get into the first corner, you're not going to have good grip. So you got to keep the temperatures up. You do that by riding the brake against the gas pedal a little bit, but weaving around, trying to scrub these tires, get them cleaned off just in case we see some green flag action.
Saw a moment ago that The CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race does belong to Lucas Catana, so there is pace in that car. You see Jeff Rica's car up on the rollback. Field right now is in turn 9, so it depends. If that rollback can get to a cutout, we might have a chance to go green for one final dash to the checkers. Currently, the lights are still on the safety car. They would hope to have them off by now if they were going to restart the race. And I suspect that probably signals.
They're trying to slow it down, see if there's an opportunity.
Yep.
But I think it's too bad.
I will know as soon as the safety car passes pit in. And there you go. So that just about seals it. It'll be one more lap behind the safety car to settle this one. Chris Walsh, Lucas Catana, Mike Lamara up to third. Nice strong run for Mike. I think that Integra on debut, still looking for a little.
And there's a lot to learn for everyone.
Interesting. Is the, oh, they're going to slow it down to avoid having to do an extra lap, I see, under the safety car. So with the clock all at zeros, there's the checkered flag, and that seals the deal. Chris Walsh is the winner for the second straight day. Lucas Catana, Mike Lamara, they complete the podium. Celso Neto fighting back from a shifting issue to get back into the 4th spot in TCX. Meanwhile, TC goes to Ruben Iglesias Jr. Congratulations to Ruben. Great result for him. Joey Jordan in 2nd. Sally McNulty, a 3rd place finish, backing up her 2nd place run yesterday. And in the TCA class, PJ Gronke goes back-to-back to start his 2024 campaign. There is PJ right there. I'm sure celebrating inside that race car. He told me this morning, yep, I wish I had more people to race against, but you know, I will take any win that comes my way.
Absolutely.
So let's take a look at our provisional race results from race 2 of the weekend for TC America, powered by Skip Barber, Chris Walsh, Lucas Catana, Mike Lamara, your podium in the TCX class. Then it's Ruben Iglesias, Joey Jordan, and Sally McNulty. We think Joey Jordan and Sally McNulty will be the co-points leaders leaving this weekend at Sonoma Raceway. No question about who's leading the points in either TCX or TCA. It'll be Chris Walsh with a pair of wins, and PJ Gronke also a couple of wins here this weekend that have scored maximum points, and will head to the next round at Sebring in firm control, albeit in the early stages of the season of their respective title hunts. Well, from this super smooth new surface here at Sonoma, Sebring beckons next, and it couldn't be much different. Flat and bumpy versus hilly and smooth.
What a challenge, but I just absolutely love the character, the history there at Sebring. It's a fun racetrack, got some of the most demanding corners that you'll find in all of North America, with those 2 high-speed ones, or entry at least, into turn 1 and into 17. But respect the bumps, as they say. There's plenty of them to respect.
And you've had some success there in your history.
Yeah, we scraped a win there way back in the 1990 era with Jack Roush winning the 12 hours, so that was a special moment in my career. But I think any win at Sebring for these drivers will be important to their career and certainly their championship hunt this year.
Looking back on race number 2 of the weekend for TC America, powered by Skip Barber. Highlights of this race in an early spin. That was very strange. Mario Biunda goes around just after taking the green flag. Everyone else, though, clean up the hill on the first time of asking. Battles, as we've seen all weekend. Chris Walsh, Lucas Catana. This was a huge commitment move up the hill into turn 1 that put Walsh back in front.
Yeah, he had the pole. Catana had gotten around him, and then a momentary sort of like glitch. It seemed like accelerating out 11, and Chris Walsh pounced, then dives into turn 4 a little bit too deep, but hangs with it, keeps the power down, maintains the lead heading into the carousel.
Very nearly gave it back up, but fortunately able to recover. Also fortunate in this scary fire-filled moment, Jeff Rica able to bring that car to a stop and exit his Gin Racer Hyundai. He appears to be all right, able to get out of that car under his own power, but unfortunately that brought the race to a close. Race ends under the yellow flag with Chris Walsh sweeping the weekend at TCX. Let's check in with Amanda down in Victory Lane.
And back-to-back wins to kick off this season in TCX for Chris Walsh. And man, I think we're going to be spoiled between the battles with you and Lucas this season. What can we expect there?
Yeah, I mean, Lucas and I are super close on pace, and he kept me honest because I was pushing really hard to see if I could build a gap at the beginning of the race, and he hung right in there. And I made a mistake out of the carousel, and he pulled the same move on me that I pulled on him yesterday, snuck up on me, and made a good pass. So I said, okay, cool, that was nice. I'll settle in, and then he got loose out of turn 11, and so I was like, hey, we're going too wide into turn 1 and see what happens. And I guess we got saved by the safety car in some regards, but yeah, it would have been a good finish if that hadn't happened.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
Awesome weekend for Chris Walsh. Big smiles and a cool story, as we heard earlier from the Karis Callis team.
He gave us the answer. He said that Lucas had got loose. That's why he didn't accelerate off the corner and was vulnerable.
There is PJ Gronke taking that helmet off. Hope to hear from him here shortly. Same as well for Ruben Iglesias, the TC winner. First career win for Ruben in TC America. I think we have a chance to hear from him now with Amanda Busick.
And he just said, it's my very first win. And I was talking to your team, and they said that you had very low expectations coming into the season, but I imagine this is going to be high on that list. Talk about this milestone for you.
Well, it means the world to me. I hope it's the first of many more to come. And I just got to thank my mom that's right there, and my parents, and Victor Gonzalez. I owe everything to him. I wouldn't be here without him. And I just want to thank the team, especially. I had a great car to compete. I couldn't have asked for a better weekend.
Congratulations, Ruben. You get to step on that stop step and spray that champagne, bud. And as we head over to PJ, as we know who is always animated and loving to spray that champagne, PJ, you sweep the weekend here at Sonoma. How will you take what you learned here forward in the season?
Well, it's definitely the way we wanted to start the season. It's an absolute pleasure to see you again. And this is how Mini JCW Team Mini USA does things. We always have the best platform, we have the best team, we've got the best support and the best car. And I knew I could always do this, and to sweep the weekend was absolutely incredible. My sponsors, Joseph Gas, Eventscape, Tundra, Talent Net, Cabanos Cheeseburgers, this was for them, and we brought home the double victory.
Well done, PJ, your team right there.
That'll be a nice celebration for sure. Congratulations to all three of our race winners here. Coming up next for TC America, a trip to Florida, Sebring International Raceway. That's coming up in 1 month's time.